In the early 2000s, the city of Abodon was a place that witnessed some of the most turbulent moments in its history. The tension across campuses was fueled by rival student groups who often clashed in their struggle for power and control. Among the most visible of these groups at the time were the Black Axe, the Airlords, and the Buccaneers. Their presence was strongly felt, and their battles left a mark not only on the institutions but also on the streets of Abodon itself. Amid this unrest, a single name rose above the rest on the campus of the Polytechnic Ibadan, a figure both feared and respected by many. His name was Iron Body. Among students and even within his own group, Iron Body's reputation carried weight. He was known for being extremely tough, highly disciplined, and never afraid to confront anyone who challenged him. For many, he represented the height of strength and resilience during those years. But Iron Body's story had an unusual twist. Strangely enough, those who knew him before his admission into the Polytechnic remembered him as a quiet and calm young man. He was once described as calculated, reserved, and not someone who drew unnecessary attention to himself. However, that side of him seemed to fade as soon as he set foot on campus. Iron Body was not initiated into his group at the Polytechnic. Long before he became a student there, he had already been deeply involved. This meant that by the time he gained admission, he was not an ordinary newcomer. Instead, he walked onto campus already equipped with connections, influence, and a name that quickly began to spread. The Polytechnic Ibadan was already known as a difficult ground, a place where hardened individuals had established themselves over the years. Students whispered about the dangers of moving carelessly, and the school had a reputation for being one of the most intense institutions in the Southwest. Yet, when Iron Body arrived, he carved out his own space in an environment that was already hostile. His actions, his presence, and his authority soon placed him among the most dreaded names of that era. It was said that Iron Body's transformation was shocking. A young man once calm and calculated became a symbol of intimidation and dominance. His rise was not overnight, but steady, and with each passing year, his name became etched into the unwritten history of Abodon's campus life. For students of that period, merely hearing his name was enough to spark fear and silence conversations. In a city already plagued by unrest, Iron Body became one of the figures that shaped the narrative of campus struggles in Abodon during the early 2000s. What made Iron Body stand out from all others during those years was not just his name or reputation, but the fearless way he carried himself. Many described him as a man who never backed down, no matter the situation. His courage was legendary, and his actions on campus often confirmed it. There were stories of Iron Body boldly walking into meetings of rival groups, gatherings where most people would never dare to set foot, and disrupting them without hesitation. This daring behavior shocked many students and spread his reputation far and wide. For some, it was madness, for others, it was bravery. But whichever way it was seen, it marked him as someone who was different. He did not just follow the flow, he was determined to lead it. Even after completing his studies at the Polytechnic Ibadan, Iron Body refused to fade into the background like others who moved on after graduation. Instead, he remained on campus for 3 more years, continuing to exert his influence. This unusual decision kept his presence alive among the new intakes who came into the school, and it strengthened his dominance even further. Students knew that Iron Body was not just a passing figure, he had become a permanent fixture, a name that refused to disappear. During his time, the entire campus was marked by endless confrontations among the 3 main groups, the Black Axe, the Airlords, and the Buccaneers. The atmosphere was tense, and students often lived in fear of the next major outbreak of violence. It was like walking through a field where sparks could ignite a fire at any moment. One of the most unforgettable turning points of that period came when the Black Axe clashed heavily with the Buccaneers. According to accounts, the conflict began after a highly respected figure within the Buccaneers, popularly called Doctor, was eliminated. The incident reportedly took place off campus around the Agbej area, and it sent shockwaves through the student community. The aftermath was devastating. The Buccaneers, enraged by the loss of Doctor, struck back with full force. They launched waves of retaliation against members of the Black Axe, targeting anyone associated with them. Students recalled how the situation grew worse because the Buccaneers were said to have drawn support from outside Abodon, bringing in reinforcements from other states to strengthen their attacks. The cycle of retaliation and counter-retaliation made the campus environment unpredictable. Each day felt like a gamble. Students never knew when or where the next clash would happen. It was in the middle of this storm that Body's reputation as a fearless enforcer became cemented. He was not just another name in the struggle, he was a symbol of defiance, someone whose courage set him apart. Looking back, many still remember that period as one of the darkest and most unstable times in the history of the Polytechnic Ibadan. Yet, within that chaos, the name Body continued to echo, becoming a legend in the stories passed down by those who witnessed it. Among the many tragic events that followed the death of Dr., one of the most unforgettable was the loss of a man called Elder. Elder was not just another face in the Black Axe circle, he was a well-known figure, respected and even admired by people both inside and outside the group. His death became one of the defining moments of that turbulent era. Unlike many of his peers, Elder had a personality that stood out for the right reasons. He was described by students and locals as a cheerful and friendly young man, someone who carried laughter and kindness wherever he went. Even though he was deeply involved in a system that thrived on fear and violence, Elder was among the few who tried to bring calmness when things got out of hand. Many said that whenever the Black Axe attempted to intimidate innocent students or ordinary people, Elder was often the one who stepped forward to mediate, urging restraint and discouraging unnecessary harassment. To many, he was proof that even in dark times, there were still rare voices of peace. But Elder's good nature could not shield him from the storm that was sweeping across Abodon. After the death of Dr., the Buccaneers made it clear that retaliation was inevitable. Every member of the Black Axe became a potential target, and Elder, despite his peaceful reputation, was not spared. His end came on a morning that started like any other. That day, Elder was seen around a railway track at a popular food junction, engaging in a casual discussion with some of the motor park chairmen. He looked relaxed, unaware that his fate had already been sealed. Unknown to him, he had been marked out, and his movements had been carefully studied. To Elder, it was just another day in the bustling city of Abodon. To his enemies, it was the day chosen to strike. The group that came for him was no ordinary unit. Rumors spread that they were an external strike squad, brought in from the southeast specifically to handle missions like this. They arrived in a yellow vehicle, blending into the everyday chaos of Abodon streets. To onlookers, it was just another car passing by, but inside were men with a single mission, Elder. When the moment came, the attack was swift. Elder never stood a chance. The very ground he stood on turned into the place where his story ended. After completing their mission, the attackers quickly fled the scene, speeding away in the same yellow vehicle that had brought them. Within minutes, the area was thrown into confusion, with bystanders scattering and whispers of fear spreading like wildfire. What made the incident even more shocking was the location. Elder's life was cut short at Sanayo bus stop, a place very close to a police station. The boldness of the attack, carried out in broad daylight near the presence of law enforcement, sent a clear message. It showed just how daring and determined these groups had become during that era. For those who knew Elder personally, the news of his death was heartbreaking. Many could not understand why a young man known for his kindness and jovial spirit had to meet such a fate. His story became one of the most talked about in the aftermath of the conflict. To students of the Polytechnic Ibadan and residents of the city, Elder's death was more than just another episode in the cycle of violence. It was the loss of someone who might have represented a different path. Years later, people still recall Elder not just as a member of a feared group, but as one of the rare individuals who tried to bring peace in a time of unrest. His name is often mentioned with a sense of sadness, a reminder of how even good-hearted people can become casualties when chaos reigns. At the time when Elder's story shook the entire city, the Black Axe confraternity was not only locked in battle with the Buccaneers but was also engaged in a bitter struggle with another powerful rival, the Airlords. This meant the group was caught in the middle of two wars at the same time, fighting on different fronts and facing enemies that were equally determined. The clash with the Airlords was one of the fiercest in the history of the Polytechnic Ibadan. In the height of that conflict, the Black Axe reportedly struck a devastating blow by eliminating a man known as Jubro. Iroko was not just any member of the Airlords, he was said to be the global leader of the organization at that period. His death sent shockwaves across campuses nationwide, and it made the ongoing confrontations even more dangerous. With Iroko gone, the Airlords were burning with vengeance, determined to answer back. So, while the Black Axe was still reeling from the counterattacks of the Buccaneers following Doctor's death, they were simultaneously dealing with heavy retaliation from the Airlords. The Polytechnic Ibadan had become a battleground, and students of that era recalled the level of fear that gripped the campus. It was a time when walking around the school was like stepping into a storm. You never knew when lightning would strike. Amid all this chaos, the unthinkable happened, the fall of Iron Body. For years, Iron Body had built a reputation as one of the most feared enforcers in the entire city. His courage, his toughness, and his daring actions made him a legend. But his boldness, which once made him stand out, eventually became the very reason for his downfall. According to reports, Iron Body was not specifically targeted that day. His end came as a result of overconfidence and a lack of caution. True to his fearless nature, he was said to have marched into a Buccaneers gathering with the intention of disrupting it. For him, it was nothing unusual. He had walked into rival meetings before, and his name alone had been enough to cause panic. But on this day, things took a different turn. Instead of retreating in fear, the Buccaneers in the gathering rose against him. In what became an instant and overwhelming response, they surrounded him, and in the heat of the moment, Iron Body was taken down. The most surprising part of the story is that the men who brought him down were not even experienced fighters or special strike members. They were said to have been newly initiated Buccaneers, young and fresh in their journey. The fact that such inexperienced men could overpower one of the most dreaded figures of the time shocked many people across the city. When news of Iron Body's death spread, confusion followed. At first, there were conflicting reports about who had actually taken him down. Since the Black Axe was at war with both the Buccaneers and the Airlords, some speculated that it was the Airlords who had managed to ambush him. But as time passed, clearer accounts confirmed that it was indeed the Buccaneers who had ended his reign. The fall of Iron Body marked the end of an era. For years, his name had echoed across the Polytechnic Ibadan, striking fear into students and rivals alike. But his story ended in the very environment he had thrived in, an environment of confrontation, revenge, and violence. His bravery, once celebrated, had crossed into recklessness, and that mistake cost him his life. Looking back today, the story of Iron Body and the events of that period serve as a powerful reminder. No matter how strong or fearless a person may appear, violence and cult activities always end in tragedy. Lives are lost, families are broken, and communities are left scarred. That is why it is important for all young people to learn from these stories and choose a better path. Say a no to cultism. A no to violence. A no to crime. Say yes to education. Yes to peace. Yes to building a brighter future. Because at the end of the day, the greatest strength is not in spreading fear, but in spreading peace.